Facebook, Zoom webinar attendees, and everyone that's listening to this broadcast. I want to say good morning to you and welcome to Blake Media, where we're helping you get your point across. But this is Dr. Joe Blake, and I want to thank you for tuning in and hearing what we have to share, hearing what I have to share today. And I hope you had a wonderful, 4th of July weekend. I know a lot of us may be kind of combined in there or blocked in there, but at least we have this opportunity to be able to share the information we have to share today. So I want to start first and share with you that next week I'm going to have the next seminar is going to be, we're going to have a guest speaker, so it's, kind of a surprise guest speaker that's going to share some information as well along the lines of financial literacy, so we can continue our progress towards building more financial literacy in our lives. So what I'd like to start with today also is if you have any questions, at the bottom of your screen there, it'd be a Q&A. So you can put a question in there at the Q&A, then you can also, or you can email me with that information as well. So so for today, what we're going to start with is the PowerPoint. And let's go here. All right. So as we begin and we look at the lesson here, let's see. There we go. All right. So we're starting out, and this is again about my book, Joseph, Building Financial Literacy, and this book is based on my research that I've done to get my PhD. So it took me 5 years to do the research. I enjoyed every bit of it, though. I enjoyed learning and getting a greater understanding of what God had called me to do. So as we begin, we're going to take a look at. Let's see here. Kind of didn't work out there. Make sure we're at the right place here. Sorry for the delay. Okay, so as we begin, here we go. Actionable financial decision model, actionable financial literacy decision model. So this is the model, this is the end result of what my research has done. So I always like to kind of start here so we can, the more I say it, the more understanding that everyone gets and know why and what the purpose of my research and my book was about. So here there's two sides of the spectrum there. You have actionable financial knowledge, and then you have actionable financial behaviors. So it's the knowledge that you gain that you put into action and it changes your behavior. And the actions are here. So there's 5 points there. There's ethical economic stewardship, money basics, investing, borrowing, and protecting. Those elements are the foundation of the behavior model here. And it's each step in the model that we have to understand and go through and do this. You may have to do it initially on a monthly basis. Then you may have to do it on a maybe quarterly basis, semi-annual basis, then the annual basis to to understand your finances. And as you continue to do it and learn it, it becomes easier for you. But right now in the beginning, it's kind of hard to kind of focus on it this way, but it's a new way of learning, new way of understanding. So this is the full model of the financial literacy model, the decision model. Then, and it's a continuous cycle, as I mentioned. Then here we have the behaviors. And the behaviors, you use each behavior, you use the behavior model and each step in the financial literacy model. So you're looking at the economic changes, if your actions are making the right economic changes, if that's making right financial sense, and in a sense, you're looking at making sure the money piles up. And then if there a monetary flaw, meaning that if you're thinking you become a millionaire overnight, that's not going to happen. So you're looking at the first two questions to see if there's any flaws in your behavior and your economic actions, and if those actions are adding up to the dollar signs in your bank account or your investment account. And then the third step is there's a flaw in those thinking, those two. And then unrealistic is unrealistic is just being unrealistic about how you're looking at finances. You know, if you think you're going to find that penny stock or that dollar stock and it's going to turn you into a millionaire overnight, that's unrealistic. Because investing is not. It's a starting point. It's a behavior. It's not just, hey, I'm gonna put $100 in this. I'm gonna wait till this $100 becomes a million. No, it's a process. Investing is a process, and there's a series of steps that you need to take for that process to realize in the end. And then recreate. We look at recreating and making sure that if you're able to recreate that same model within yourself or in others and a larger organization as a whole. So those two elements, you have the behavior model and then you have the decision model, which works out in that model. Those models help you get a greater understanding of finance, financial literacy rather. So I looked at those two models as I was, those are the end results. But in writing those models, in my book, I have 5 major lessons. So like the first lesson is what went down. And that's what we're still continuing to talk about right now is what went down. And then the next step in it is what I read about it. You'll learn some more of the text that I read. And then the method of discovery, how I went about getting the answers to what I was looking for, finding out why people or why believers were doing the things they did. And then what we do next. What we do next is like the next step in what you need to take advantage of for your financial future. Now, this book is the first book in the trilogy. So there are 2 other books behind it. So this one mainly deals with having that understanding about building financial literacy and also knowing what to do to get to the next stage or next knowledge-wise, having the right knowledge, taking the right task, and exhibiting the right behaviors to make it a continuous cycle. And even as you look at my book, the bricks, the building blocks in the back, those are Egyptian pyramids. And we all know the Egyptian pyramids have been around for thousands of years. So those bricks there are the building blocks of what we're dealing with your financial literacy, with your family's financial literacy. We're going to build something that's going to last for generations on end. So your wealth that you're creating is for your children's children, and beyond. So it's not like a one-time setting that we're doing here. It's something that you have to continue with through your life and through you teach that information to your children. And when you do that, that's what makes things actionable. But you got to have a starting point where you look at. All right. So the first point we're talking about is ethical economic stewardship. So this comes from the Leadership Bible from John Maxwell, and it says, ethical economic stewardship. We are stewards of what God owns, nothing more. So we are stewards of what God owns. And when it comes to our financial picture, what does he own? He owns all the money that he gives us. Money, the resources, the opportunities, he owns that. And we can only manage those resources effectively when you know or look at it as, okay, this is not mine, this is what God gave me. I need to give him his part, and then I need to make sure I look at what I'm doing specifically to make things happen. So, we just, is what God owns. Now, if we don't give God ownership over our life or give God ownership over our finances, then he can't have no part in it. He can't have no insight or direction to give you if he doesn't own it. So if you get your paycheck, you say, this is mine, this is my money, then you're thinking that that's yours and God didn't give it to you. So he said, thank you, God, for this sale I made. Thank you, God, for this paycheck I got. Thank you, Lord, for this refund I have over here. So those things belong to God. When you look at it as those are things that belong to God, He owns it. Then we, in a sense, from that point, have to manage it from that point. So understand that. So it's what God owns. He owns it, and we are only there to manage those resources that God gives us. So think about that in that mindset. So one of the texts that I read to build my my research and dig deep into it was the financial crisis inquiry, and this was done in 2011, and it was in response to the financial crisis from 2007. That lasted from 2007 to 2009, actually. And during that time, we saw nothing like today, but it's like a repeat though. Back then, it was like 26 million people that are out of work. A lot of folks were using their homes. Their financial picture looked very bleak and very insecure back then. And I'm quite sure many of you maybe remember those times back in 2007, 2009, what you gained or what you lost during that time. So the financial, the crisis inquiry here, they went back and looked at what they felt caused the financial crisis. So when I wrote in my book, I was looking at what was the reason, what was causing it, or what may have been the I gotta put the trigger for the crisis to begin. And Angelides is the main gentleman that focused on the crisis report here, but he was the one that really highlighted it. Now, one of the things in that particular report that came out, he said that the conclusion of the matter, what was the cause of the financial crisis? It stemmed from human nature, action, and inaction of the individual, as well as their society irresponsibly for human weakness. So when we look at that and we say, you look back at the financial crisis, what caused it? Well, it's not having the right stock or the right bond or the right, mutual fund. It was people's action, what they did. I kind of a little simple thing here. In other words, human beings and how they function is what they did, what they do, what they don't do as individuals. That's what caused it. And then it was a societal society neglect to account for those shortcomings of people. So that's what happened. It was people being themselves, and then what they did or didn't do, and then a society as a whole weren't able to hold folks accountable for those shortcomings. Now that was in 2007, 2009. And I would imagine some of you are thinking right now, that's exactly what's happening again. And that's true. There has truth to it. Because if people's nature, and you know what they're going to do and not going to do, and as a society, if we're not willing to hold those people or individuals accountable for it, you'll find the same thing we found out in a financial crisis. 2000, there were 26 million people that are out of work. Back then, you had what kind of spearheaded or started it was the mortgage crisis. A lot of folks were getting homes, and those homes were interest-only mortgage. And so now, just think about it. When you pay your mortgage payment, do you pay it with interest rate or you pay it with dollars? You pay it with dollars, right? But back then, people would be bragging about, oh, I got a 1% loan, I got a 2% loan, and thinking that percentage is what was making it for them. But it's the dollar amount that percentage was linked to, which is what they were paying, which it evidently ended up being a larger amount, and they weren't able to afford those homes, and then they lost them. And so, but again, the main premise for the financial crisis back in 2007, 2008 was people, their nature of being, their nature of who they are, their nature of what they're trying to do is their nature, and what they what people do, what people don't do as an individual. So if they didn't want to get the type of mortgage loan back then, they could have got a standard loan, but it was millions of folks that did that. There was millions of folks that got into that type of mindset. And there's a scripture that I'm not going to go to right now, but it's in Matthew that talks that this scripture talks about someone's how can I put it, way of being is not good, but it says, wide is the way and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and narrow is the way that leads to life. So that broad road, just think of it. How many folks had those interest-only loans? It was a broad road, right? But there was a very few who just did things the standard way, and that broad road led to destruction. Led to destruction of individuals, led to destruction of economies as a whole, and led to destruction of families and the jobs and everything. And society didn't hold folks accountable, which was the lenders, the bankers back then, who were letting people just say, oh yeah, I make $50,000 a year income without any paperwork to back it up. And then we as individuals went along with that, because we was like, okay, wow, I got a 1% loan on this home, and that mean the payment is only like $200, right? $1,000 right now. Not reading the full contract, and then saying at the end of that contract, well, not even at the end, maybe 5 years down the road, there's an adjustment for a balloon payment. So your payment goes from $1,000 to $3,000. And just think about it, do the average individual's paycheck increase that much within the year? Within a 5-year period? No. So that 1,000 payment becomes 3,000, and now that home is not, they can't afford that home, and then foreclosure and short sales and all those things come up. Now, I'm not saying anything is right or wrong. What I'm basically doing is just pointing out things and how we see it and the long-term look or approach to it. So it was just individuals, how people were being, and it was what they did or didn't do. And then as a society, not holding those folks accountable for it. And that was the premise for the financial crisis from 2007 to 2009. Fast forward today, similar things are occurring, but this time it's a virus that's causing us to be able to just not be where we want to be, not do what we want to do. And there's some folks that are overlooking that. And when they overlook it and just think of it as something passive, that will be where we are now, with so many folks with the coronavirus and not protecting themselves by having the mask on. Now, like, again, I'm not a doctor and I'm saying anything, but like, I got my little mask here, and it's for veterans. Yay, veterans, because I'm a vet. I was Air Force veteran, and I was a firefighter of all things, which is crazy. But I understand wearing protective gear when you go into a hostile environment. I understand that. So I wear my protective gear to protect me. But you get some folks in society that don't want to do that, and when they're not held accountable, then it just kind of explodes like it is. But this is mainly looking at like from a financial building financial literacy perspective. All right. So also in my reading, I found it in the writing, it talked about how there's ample evidence that those that get the information and access to the knowledge that's available now, those that gain access to the knowledge now, in the future will be the aristocrats or the philanthropists of the future. So you have an understanding now. In the future, you'll have that chance to become that philanthropist in the future, where you're giving millions of dollars to organizations and beginnings of companies to help better humanity. So it's not about it. Once you have the money is just a result of you doing what your purpose is. You know, you fulfilling God's purpose in your life. Money is just a resource. It's just it just shows you what you've done. Now, once you get those funds, is what you do with it, that can make or break you as a person. So if you don't have the inside, you know, you'll have the fortitude inside about knowing that money is just a tool and it is just a means of exchange, then you'll take that money and that money becomes who you are. And money is a terrible master. I mean, it's not who you are. It's just a reflection of what you've been able to achieve, what you've been able to provide others with. And when you're able to help other people get to where they want to be, it makes it greater. Now, as I move forward here, I have what I call a my Stricker Street story. So, you know, Stricker Street is in Baltimore, Maryland, where I grew up, and it was the inner city. A lot of folks don't, you know, sometimes you see Dr. Joe, and you may hear me and not think that I'm from the hood, which I am. I'm from the streets of Baltimore. However, what I learned growing up there helped me be who I am today. My toughness, what I learned there, helped me be as tough as I am today. You know, being on point, being strict. I wouldn't say strict like I am. That's growing up in my city. Now, and in your own case, you have to look back at it and see in your life, what was your Stricker Street story? What are some of the things that you went through in life to help you financially where you are now to understand it? And back then, we didn't have a lot. We were on welfare for a little bit. And I still got I don't have it here with me, but I got pictures of the food stamps because I remember we were on food stamps back then, and I didn't like that. I really, even as a kid, I didn't like that because back then when you get food stamps, when you gave you change back, it was in like the early 70s. They gave you plastic chips as a change, not real coins. It was plastic chips, and I remember that. And I remember looking at it, and I was like, "Man, this is all jacked up. I don't want this right here." But you know, it got food and stuff like that, so I had to use it. But anyway, but Stricker Street, that was just a big part of my life, and I have many friends that are out there now that never remember the Stricker Street life. We were all family there. It was all fun. It was good. All right, so one of the stories here from Stricker Street was my mother, and my mom. And that's what my book is in. My book is actually, dedicated to my mother because my mother never finished high school. But outside of her not finish high school, every time I would graduate, I made sure that I would put my graduation cap on my mom's head. So when I graduated from junior high, I graduated from high school, I got my bachelor's degree, my master's degree. I took my hat off and I put it on my mother's head because I wanted to honor her. And when I getting to my PhD, my mom went to heaven a year before I finished my PhD, but she knew I was doing it. So being what I learned from Stricker Street was a big thing. So in this story here, so my mother, whenever Easter time came, Easter, everybody at Easter time got new gifts, new outfits and everything, and you would fashion your outfits and you go out and show everyone. But my mom went every year. We would either go down to downtown on Howard Street, because in Baltimore back then, Howard Street was a place where a lot of stores and shops were, where you get your clothing and everything. It was very, very reasonable price items. Reasonable price, not cheap, but reasonably priced. We'd either go to the Howard Street or we go to Mondawmin Mall. And I don't know if Mondawmin is still open, but it's kind of rough. It was rough back then, but I think it's a little rough right now too. But my mom would always take us there to go shopping to get our our Easter clothing in, and we had fun, going and hanging out with my mom to go shopping and everything. And so when Easter came along, then we're in the store, and I remember this one instance we were in the store, and my mom was all excited because she seen the price of some dresses for my sister. And she said, oh, and she was like getting two or three, and I was like, hold it. And for me, I was like, hey, something wrong with this picture. My mom's got two or three outfits for my sister, and I got one for me. And I was like, okay, mama, no, that ain't working, mama. What's going on? So my mama she leaned over to me and said, well, son, I can get two or three outfits for the price of your one. So I mean, I can get that for your sister. And I was like, man, that ain't fair. And at that point, I said, yeah, my mama loved my sister more than me. She loved my sister more than me. My sister getting all the gifts and everything, and I'm getting this one, you know. So, but I realized that at that, what my mother did was she set money aside and she waited till sales came. So she can get more value for her dollar when she put the money aside, and when the sales came, she went and got those products. And by right, yeah, women's clothing are a little cheaper than men. Women's shoes are cheaper than men. Women, they can get 50 pair of shoes, and guys don't have that many. Except for me, my, my wife thinks I have more shoes than she has. but that's how it happens. But the point being is that when you have that opportunity to set money aside, then make a purchase, that's the best thing to do. And then you're able to find it when it's on a sale. Like right now, the market, you may see the economy and everything, the market, they'll say, oh, the market is down, the economy is down, everything. Well, it means it's on sale. So when something's on sale, what do? You buy more of it. And that's what the economy is doing right now. So it's not that it's down. The way to take another look at it, have that actionable knowledge look at it, is that it's on sale right now. And you want to take advantage of the market when it's on sale. You want to do your best to. And the sale started, I think the recession started, I think, in February. Normally it lasts for like 18 months, 2 years. So that means the market is going to be this way on sale for the next 2 years. So you really want to if you're a long-term investor, you want to buy now and hold on to them so you can have it later on down the road. If you're an older investor, you have to stand back a little bit and say, okay, I can't fathom the ups and downs. Let me put it in a place where it's going to give me some consistent income for the rest of my days. So, but that's different. But what I'm talking about here is when the market is on sale, you want to take advantage of that sale and get as much as you can while it's on sale. All right. So here also, I read in my book, I talk about how education or model of learning needs to change. So that model I shared you in the beginning, that's just a new model of learning. So it's based on information and resources that comes from the real world, and that we need to activate, we need to integrate it in our lives, and it can't be passive or fragmented. So that's why I have the different modes of learning inside of my model. But then there's the behavior, there's the knowledge side, and then the behavior side. Knowledge side comes from getting more information and understanding and what there is about financial products and services. And think about it, what was the last financial book you read? Outside of mine, and I'm quite sure you got my book, you went to Amazon.com to pick up my book, or you can go to my website, Blake Media, LLC.com. And if you order from my website, I can give you a signed copy of my book. But, outside of that, when was the last time you read a financial book or a book about, about money? And it could be a spiritual book, or it could be a non-spiritual book. But think about that. And then what did you do to incorporate it in your life? What did you do to incorporate it or put it in place in your life? And what behaviors did you change to make those things accessible or within your life? So when you're looking at the model, there's this one gentleman, his name was Chris Argyros. He's a Harvard University professor. And he dealt a lot with organizational learning and how companies and organizations can learn as a whole. Now he passed away back in 2013, but his teachings are still prevalent today. It's still his whole philosophy I just enjoy, and his philosophy is what I incorporated in the writing of my book, and that was actionable knowledge. So, what is actionable knowledge when you see it? What is actionable knowledge? So, actionable knowledge is a key activity in the universe, and is managed by creating or bringing intended consequences. So, your intent in what you're learning and the actionable knowledge is to bring about, the consequences that you want. You want to be financially independent? These are the things you have to learn, and then to put actions into place, and you have to look at those actions over a period of time, and then change your behaviors as you go along. So those behaviors, those intended consequences, then they inform us what we needed to do to produce what they call external validity. Now, as I mentioned, that's PhD information right there, but I'm going to show you to break it down to you a little bit. But so you're looking at how you can create or bring those intended consequences, and how they produce high validity, external validity in your life. So actionable knowledge. And with actionable knowledge, let me here. So in other words, what you're looking at the results of my study, how I've generalized those results, and how it can be generalized across other situations, other people, other stimuli, and other times. So it's not just you. What really makes it actionable is if you take the information yourself, but you're able to teach it and share it in other settings. So it's not just about you understanding it. It's as you understand it, you'll be able to share and teach it to others. And that's why I give the model there, so you can use that model as a means of being able to share with others. So when as you share with them, they get that understanding. You get the understanding more so. They get the understanding, and then they know how to take advantage of the financial things that are out there. Now, as I mentioned, this first book is getting that knowledge, getting a new way of thinking, knowing what you need to do and how you need to do it, so you can share it with others. So being able to share with other situations, people, stimuli, and other time frames, all that is part of actionable knowledge. So I had to find that in scripture. Once I said, okay, knowledge, I had to, for me, I had to find it in scripture. Now, some folks, they'll be saying, well, you're using scripture to do this. And well, my question to you is, do you have a full-time God or a part-time God? Is your God full-time or part-time? Part-time God is you only call him when there's a 911 happening in your life. You have a crisis that's happening. You have a dire need that's in place. Is that the only time you call on God, or do you call on God even before then? So for me, I call on God. I say, okay, I got this. I have this theory that I'm looking at, Lord. I have to find it in your word, and if it's going to tell me what I need to know for the next step. So I found it. And if you look in the Bible and you go to 1 James chapter 2, verse 1 Samuel 2 and verse 3. And this is the second part of verse 3. It says, so for the Lord God is God of knowledge, and by him actions are weighed. So there's that actionable knowledge right there. So the God is God of knowledge, and by him actions are weighed. Now, and that's kind of similar to faith without works. You can have the faith, but if you don't have no works towards it, then it's null and void. So if you don't have the knowledge and you don't have no actions behind that knowledge, then it's without void. And that's why we see the recreation of poverty and debt in our lives, because one generation is not able to give knowledge to the next generation to make a change in their future. So you may have to be the one to make that change in your family. You may have to be the one that read the books, get the information, go to the school. Once you get the information, you have to be able to now give it back to others, so they can get that understanding themselves as well. And then as they get it, they can make change in the actions in their lives. You think about it. If you're an investor If you've invested, it could be in mutual funds, things of that nature. But if you haven't invested, you haven't looked at doing that, how do you expect others to do it? Your children to follow you. If you haven't created that financial wealth in your life, how do you expect your children to understand what they need to do? And you can start anywhere, but you have to get that knowledge and information first, and then put it in action. Not talk about it. If you sitting there telling your children to go to school and you haven't done anything, it doesn't work, because they're gonna children follow what you do more than what you say. They follow what you're doing more than what you say. Now I know maybe preach to the choir, but one of the things I learned from my pastor, Dr. Craig, it's Apostle Alfred Craig. And sometimes it was like 1,000 people in the church, but when I hear it, it's just me and him, even though it's 1,000. But one of the things, he said many things, but one of the things he said, you have to be what you want your children to become. See, you got to be what you want your children to become. And for me, I took that, I said, wow, I said, well, okay, I got to be what I need to be me. I need to be Joe, so I can. And Joe was a person that wanted to learn, wanted to grow, wanted to be informed about things. So I started going to college, started going to school. And initially when I started, I didn't realize how far along I was in the knowledge wise. And I started going, and while I was in the military still, military firefighter. And how can you be a firefighter and they'll talk about finance? It's still same fire. It's a fire somewhere, so you got to go out and put it out. But we'll talk about that later as well. But so I had to learn that way and be that way. And so I read the Bible 8 times front to back, so I can tell if somebody's pulling me from the left, if you read the word or not. As soon as you open your mouth, I know. But I read the word, and I started going to school and didn't know how it would work out. Well, what happens to my children? They follow. They all have 4 kids, blended family, and each one has their master's degree. My daughter's still working on hers, but she's almost done. But I still, those 4, master's degree, not just bachelor's, but master's degree. And then my oldest boy, he's working on his PhD. He's trying to chase his daddy. But all that from actionable knowledge, knowing that God is God of knowledge, and by Him actions are weighed. So those actions that we take make a difference. So back and we're going to come back into it again, but in the beginning, how I showed how knowledge and then behaviors, so that knowledge comes. Then you have the stages that within the knowledge, that the model, the decision model is there, and the behaviors that have to be changed, the behaviors have to be adjusted to make those things come through. All of that is within building financial literacy. All of that is building financial literacy. Now, the way we learn, there is what's called single loop learning, and this comes from Chris Argyros. There's single loop learning, and then there's double loop learning. Single loop learning is when you're learning something for the very first time, and sometimes they have steps 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That's single loop learning, because you're learning them in steps. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's just you're learning in step. Double loop learning takes that learning, put it within a model, and it causes you to correct and detect errors in your thinking. So when you double loop learning, you have that within a model, and you're correcting and detecting your errors. So you're looking back at it. How are you looking at stewardship? Are you taking God's resources and putting them in the right places? Are you using those resources to further His kingdom, or using the resources to further His knowledge? Are you using that information to further the knowledge of your children or your family, or those that are around you, those that you care, your community? Are you involved in your community? So you're looking at those things. So behavior and knowledge. Now, so as a double loop learning, you're looking and finding how you want to detect or correct those errors. How can you detect and correct them? All that knowledge and action. And those actions of detecting help it out. Now, I have a short video here that's going to show you or give you a little more insights about actionable knowledge. So I'm going to show the video here and then have you understand. Well, get your understanding from it.
Created using Powtoon.
All right. So that's single loop learning versus double loop learning. And creating a new learning model, a learning model, that's what it's about. So that's the foundation in my book that starts it. And so looking at the financial crisis and what Angelique found is individuals and what they're doing and not doing. And then actionable knowledge is like the answer. So we can take in, correct and detect the errors in our thinking about finance. And in my book, that was a premise of me finding out the information and then placing it within the text itself. So that understanding lets you give you more insight of why I wrote my book, what I wrote about it, how come I wrote it. And so the question here is, what are you prepared to do? Are you open to learn more things, to gain more knowledge, get more information? One, pick up my book. Right. One, pick up my book. You can get my book from Amazon.com, and you can put in just Dr. Joseph Blake Jr. and it'll pull the book up, and you can either get a paperback, you can get a digital version or a hard copy of the book itself. So that's a good thing. You can get those three things that way, or you can read some other books as well. Mine is a good start. My book is a good start. And this, like I said, this book is laying down the foundation from our research, what we studied, what I studied, why I studied it, and what caused me to write things the way I did. Okay. So with that, we're going to end up and again go over that actionable financial literacy decision model. Again, you have the knowledge, and the other side you have the behavior. In the middle, you have we talked today about ethical economic stewardship, knowing that those resources, God has to own it, and think of God owning it and we just being the managers of it. So it starts there. God owns it and we're just the managers of it. So your paycheck, God, that's something that God gave you, so you need to manage it. Then we're going to look at money basics, investing, borrowing, protecting, and then those elements help us change our behaviors. And there's a cycle that you do. You can do this on a monthly, quarterly, semi-annual, annual basis. And within each one of the models, you're looking at the behaviors that you have attempted. So you look at, are you having the right economic behaviors? Are those behaviors having the right financial effect? And you're looking at if there's any flaw to the first two questions. And then number three there, number four there is it unrealistic? Are you thinking unrealistically, thinking that you're going to get that penny stock or that dollar stock and that penny stock will turn to $1 million overnight. No. Investing is systematic, putting a set amount of money away over time. Plant your seed, give it time, reap the harvest. That's what it's about. And then recreating meaning you're able to recreate this not only in yourself or your family, but in a generalization and your community as a whole. All right, so the community as a whole. So with that, that's today's lesson on stewardship, and shared more about the two readings that kind of started for me, and that was the financial crisis report back in 2011, and then Chris Argyri's his teachings on actionable knowledge and emphasizes single loop, double loop learning over single loop learning. So if you have any questions, feel free to text those questions to me, or you can put it in the comment section on Facebook here. You can also go to my website. Again, is www.blakemediallc.com. You can just choose a tab. At the end, this is comments. You can send information to me as well. You can order the book there also. So again, I want to thank you for being on the webinar with me. Thank you for being here and listening to what I had to share. And I hope you gain some information from that. So this is again been Dr. Blake with Blake Media, where we're helping you get your point across. And I want everyone to have a great and wonderful day.